Hello students, this is your history lesson. Today we are going to read chapter 13, Afghans and the Sultanate of Delhi from Understanding History for class 6. So we start our lesson. First of all, have a look on glossary. Subdued, of a person or their manner, quiet and rather reflective or depressed. Abyssinian slave. The name derives from the Arabic word Habshi through its Persian form. Such slaves frequently employed by the chiefs of Muslim India. Ambitious, having or showing a strong desire and determination or succeed. Controversial, giving rise or likely to give rise to controversy or public disagreement. Calligraphists, a worker who has acquired special skills, the art of fine handwriting. Destitute, extremely poor and lacking the means to provide for oneself. Droughts, a drought, a prolonged period of abnormally low rainfall leading to a shortage of water. Revolt, take violent action against an established government or ruler. Peasant, a poor smallholder or agricultural laborer of low social status. Retained, continue to have something, keep possession of. Extensively, in a way that covers or affects a large area. Monumental, great in importance, extent, or size. Lineage, direct descent from an ancestor. Ransacked, go through a place, stealing things and causing damage. Plundered, steal goods from a place or person, typically using force or and in a time of war or civil disorder. Devastated, destroy or ruin. Confined, of a person, restricted in area or volume, cramped. Clan, a close-knit group of interrelated families, especially in the Scottish Highlands. Now come to page number 69 from your book and read and understand more about Afghans and the Sultanate of Delhi. The Delhi Sultanate passed from the Turks to the Afghans when the Khiljis took over. Balban's weak successor, Kekobad, was replaced by Malik Feroz Khilji, who took the title of Jalaluddin Khilji. The Khiljis were said to be Turks who had settled in Afghanistan. They would rule over the Delhi Sultanate for the next 30 years. Students, in previous chapter we have read about Qutbuddin Aibak. That in 1206 Qutbuddin Aibak set up the first Muslim Sultanate in the subcontinent. It became known as the Delhi Sultanate and was to last for 320 years, means 320 years, until the Mughals seized power in 1526. Students, the Sultanate had 5 groups of Muslim leaders, all of whom had Turkish or Afghan origins. They were the Slave Dynasty, the Khiljis, the Tolaks, the Sayyads, the Lodis. We have read about the slave dynasty in previous chapter. In this chapter, we will read about the Khiljis, the Toleks, the Sayyads, and the Lodis. The Khiljis, 1290 to 1320. The dynasty was founded by Jalaluddin Khilji in 1290. He was an experienced and wise lead ruler, and he defeated the Mongols led by Hulagu Khan's grandson, who was forced to retreat. However, another Mongol prince, Ulugh Khan, and his followers accepted Islam and settled near Delhi in a place called Moghalpura. Students, the slave dynasty ended in 1290 when Jalaluddin Feroz Khilji took over as ruler of the Sultanate, aged about 70. In 1292, when the Mughals returned with an army of at least 100,000, Jalaluddin's army marched to attack them and forced them to retreat. Alauddin Khilji, 1296 to 1316. Jalaluddin Khilji had ruled for barely 6 years when his nephew and son-in-law Alauddin Khilji had him murdered and became the Sultan. First of all, Alauddin organized a strong army which he felt was necessary for extending his kingdom and defending it from internal and external threats. The Rajputs and the Mughals, respectively. The Rajput revolts were subdued and the Mongols were prevented from making constant attacks on his territory. Next, he turned his attention to conquering the Deccan but was successful only in making the rulers of Deccan pay tribute to him. During his conquest of Gujarat, Malik Kafur, an Abyssinian slave, had been captured. He rose to be Alauddin's commander-in-chief and carried out the campaigns in the Deccan. In his old age, Alauddin became very dependent on Malik Kafur, who became ambitious for power. He tried to get rid of the princes who could succeed Alauddin, and by doing so, managed to weaken the dynasty. Alauddin was a strict and successful ruler who tried to bring peace and prosperity to this kingdom. He took an active part in running the government and made sure that prices of food items were controlled, taxes were fixed, and the policy of land grants to nobles was revised. In this way, he could control the power of the nobles. He strictly enforced his orders and banned alcohol and public meetings to stop rebellion against his rule. Though not very educated himself, Alauddin encouraged learning by setting up educational institutions and supporting scholars and saints. Students, in 1296, Sultan Jalaluddin was assassinated by his nephew Alauddin Khilji. The Mongols who came to India with Genghis Khan continued to cause problems during Alauddin's rule. But Alauddin and his army were just as ferocious as the mighty Mongols. In his battle against the Mongols, Alauddin built strong forts. In 1296 and 1297, the Mongols raided the Punjab and in 1299 attacked Delhi. After a furious battle, Alauddin's forces defeated the Mongols, but the Mongols refused to accept defeat. They attacked Delhi again and again. At last, Alauddin defeated them. Now, Alauddin had no more trouble with the Mongols, but they were to continue to cause problems for future rulers. Alauddin became the greatest and most powerful of the Delhi sultans. He became the first Muslim ruler to conquer central and southern India, reaching the southern tip of the subcontinent in 1311. The Tolaks, 1320 to 1414. When the Khilji sultans became weak, the governor of Punjab, Ghazi Malik, took the throne of Delhi under the title Ghiyasuddin Taghlaq with the consent of the nobles. He ruled for 5 years as a kind and good administrator. He was killed in an accident, and his son Muhammad Taghlaq succeeded him and ruled for 26 years after him. So, students, Ghazi Malik became Sultan in 1320, taking the title Ghiyasuddin Taghlaq. He ruled for only 5 years, dying in 1325. His son Muhammad became Sultan after him, and ruled for he ruled for 26 years. Sultan Muhammad Taghlaq, 1325 to 1351. Muhammad Taghlaq stands out as a controversial figure. He was a remarkably intelligent scholar who had mastered logic, philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and the physical sciences, as well as many languages. He was good as a writer, poet, and calligraphist, and had a wonderful memory. He was also a capable general, and as a sultan, he extended the frontiers of his kingdom farther across the subcontinent. Muhammad Taghlaq had ideas beyond his time. He issued token currency in copper, an experiment that had already been done in China, where paper currency had been issued. This experiment was a failure as people started to make copper coins in their homes and exchanged them for silver currency from the treasury. His treasury became empty, and he had to face difficulties in managing expenses for the administration. So, students, Sultan Muhammad Taghlaq came to the throne in 1325. He was a learned man who had a good knowledge of the Quran, Muslim law, astronomy, philosophy, medicine, and literature. He had an excellent memory. He was a good military leader and was interested in the administration of the Sultanate. Sultan Muhammad called Jahanpanah during his reign, extended Delhi and built fortifications around it, but he was not popular. Change of capital to Dolatabad. In 1327, Muhammad Taghlaq decided to change his capital from Delhi to Dolatabad in Upper Deccan, almost halfway between Delhi in the north and the Deccan in the south. He felt his large empire could be better controlled from there. Most of the people moved out of Delhi, but a lot of the people also died on the way to Dolatabad. Delhi was left destitute and Daulatabad could not maintain the new population as it had no fresh water supply. These unsuccessful experiments made Muhammad Taghlaq very angry, and he punished his officials for not carrying out his plans properly. There were rebellions and doubt, and famine caused further unrest in his reign. He died in 1351 on his way to Thatta to put down a revolt. Ibn Battuta. Ibn Battuta, a Moroccan traveler, came to India in 1333. He had started his travels at the age of 21 and journeyed through Africa and Asia. Trained as a Qazi judge, he stayed at the Taulo court for 7 years as a chief Qazi. He has left an account of Muhammad Taghlaq's reign. He refers to him as the most humble of men and one who is inclined towards doing what is right and just. Firoz Shah Taghlaq, 1351 to 1388. Firoz Taghlaq, a cousin of Muhammad Taghlaq, who had gained a lot of experience in his administration, became the next sultan. He was not good at warfare, but his greatness lies in the fact that he looked after the people's welfare. He opened colleges and places of learning were attached to mosques. Jalaluddin Rumi lectured on Islamic law in his time. 300 Sanskrit works were translated into Persian, which preserved the culture and history of the Hindus. To improve agriculture and the life of the peasant, Firoz Taghlaq started irrigation of farmlands by having canals dug. These canals were later retained and extended by the British. In addition, 150 wells were dug and wheat, sugarcane, and fruits were grown extensively. Students, Sultan Firoz Shah Tughlaq reigned for 37 years and he was a popular ruler. He was a good administrator and made finances strong. A great builder. Firoz Taghlaq, like the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, was a master builder and equaled the Roman Emperor Augustus' love for building. He constructed 5 towns, 30 palaces, 200 caravanserais, 100 bridges, 1200 gardens, 10 monumental pillars, and 10 public baths. He also had one of Ashoka's pillars brought to Firozabad from Ajmer. His reign is documented in the Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi. He also wrote his autobiography Futuhat-e-Firoz Shahi. Firoz Taghlaq died at the age of 80 and after him the dynasty came to an end as it could not defend itself against the Mongol invasions. Students, Firoz Shah liked building and is reported to have built 200 towns, 40 masjids, 100 hospitals, 100 public baths, and 150 bridges, as well as serais for travelers. He also built many irrigation schemes and constructed 50 dams and reservoirs so that more land could be used for agriculture. He founded a new city at Delhi on the banks of the river Yamuna. It was called Firozabad. Timur's invasion, 1398. Timur was of Turk and Mongol lineage. He was born in 1335 at Kish, 50 miles south of Samarkand, a brilliant military leader. He became the head of the Chagatai Turks and started to bring large areas of Central Asia under his command. Timur admired his ancestor Chinggis Khan and, like him, had never been defeated in battle. He was ambitious and now looked towards India for conquest. In 1398, Timur stood at the gates of Delhi and routed the army of Sultan Nasiruddin Muhammad Shah Tughlaq. His soldiers ransacked Delhi for 3 days. Timur's invasion left India plundered and devastated. Timur, like Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni, took Indian artisans and craftsmen back with him to Samarkand, which grew into a beautiful city. The Sultanate at Delhi lost its power and broke up into many small states. It was left to the Sayyid and Lodi dynasties to continue it for another 125 years. Students, Timur was a Muslim prince who claimed to be a descendant of Genghis Khan. Like Genghis, Timur wanted to rule the world. He used the city of Samarkand, in modern day we can say Uzbekistan, as his base to attack surrounding Khanates. Sayyid and Lodi dynasties. Under the Turk Malik Khizr Khan, a Sayyid who had been appointed as governor by Timur, the Delhi Sultanate had shrunk and became confined to just Delhi and some areas surrounding the city. His son Mubarak Shah declared himself the Sultan and ruled till 1450. The Sultanate was then taken over in 1451 by Behlol Lodi, the commander-in-chief of the Sayyids, who declared his independence and founded the Lodi Dynasty. Behlol Lodi was from an Afghan clan, and during his time, many Afghans settled in India. He expanded his kingdom to include the Punjab, Mewar and the Ganges Yamuna Doab farther east. He was a kind and good ruler, and his reign lasted nearly 40 years. Behlol Lodi died in 1489 and was succeeded by his son Sikandar. So, students, the governor left by Timur to rule the Punjab was called Khizr Khan. He conquered Delhi and the Doab and ruled as Sultan from 1414 to 1421. He founded a new dynasty, the Sayyids, described by one historian as undistinguished. Sikandar Lodi, 1489 to 1517. Sikandar Lodi, as described by his court historians, was believed to be the wisest, most hardworking, dedicated, and far-sighted sultan to sit on the throne of Delhi. He moved his headquarters to Agra and worked hard at improving the lot of the common people. He was interested in learning and invited scholars to his court and encouraged the compilation of books on medicine, modern Shifa, and on music, Lahjate Sikandar Shah. During Sikandar's time, many reform movements took place in Hinduism. One movement was called the Bhakti Movement, and its leader was Kabir, who inspired many followers by his dedicated life. Students, Bhakti movement was a revolution started by the Hindu saints to bring religious reforms by adopting the method of devotion to achieve salvation. Another Bhakti preacher in Bengal was Chaitanya, who led many Bengalis to follow his path. Guru Nanak in Punjab rejected the caste system and founded the Sikh religion, which was also influenced by the doctrines of Islam. Doctrine, a belief or set of beliefs held and taught by a church, political party, or other group. Sikandar Lodi died in 1517 and is buried in the Lodi Gardens in Delhi. So, students, Sikandar Shah continued to expand the empire. He made some changes which were later to be useful to the Mughals. For example, he set up a new city at Agra and moved the capital there. His organization of the central area of the Delhi Sultanate was useful to the Mughals. Sikandar Shah was succeeded by his son Sultan Ibrahim. He was not able to keep the Sultanate together. He faced rebellions in the provinces and could not command the loyalty of his troops. Ibrahim Lodi, 1517 to 1526. Ibrahim Lodi, the last of the sultans of Delhi, had to face rebellions from his governors in Bihar and Punjab and the Rajput Rana Sanga of Mewar. This weakened his control over the Sultanate, and his people were also unhappy with his rule. When he tried to punish Daulat Khan, governor of Punjab, Daulat Khan invited Babur, the king of Kabul, to save him from Ibrahim Lodi. In April 1526, Babur's army faced Ibrahim Lodi's men on the plain of Panipat. By the end of the day, Ibrahim Lodi had been defeated and killed in battle. The Delhi Sultanate came to an end without fulfilling the dream of ruling an all India empire. Now it would be left to another Turkish Mongol dynasty, the Mughals, to establish that empire in India. So, students, Lahore was governed by Daulat Khan Lodi, a relative of Sultan Ibrahim. He was unhappy with Ibrahim's rule and rose up against him. He asked a Mughal leader, Zahiruddin Muhammad, the ruler of Kabul, to invade India. Because of his courage in battle, Zahiruddin was known as Babur, which means tiger. Babur was a descendant of Temur, whose raids into the subcontinent had ended the Taulo dynasty. Now come to the questions. Question 1. Who was the most able king of the Khilji dynasty? Describe the measures he took to make his rule prosperous and peaceful. Answer. Alauddin was the most able ruler of the Khilji dynasty who tried to bring peace and prosperity to his kingdom. He made sure that price of food items were controlled, taxes were fixed, and the policy of land grants to nobles was revised. Question 2. Why were the Mongols a threat to the Delhi Sultanate? Who can be compared to them in the earlier history of the Hindu kingdoms? Answer. Mongols were a threat to the Delhi Sultanate because they made constant attacks on it. The Rajputs can be compared to them in the earlier history of the kingdoms Hindu kingdoms. Question 3. How did Timur's invasion become an important event for the Delhi Sultanate? Answer. Timur's invasion left India plundered and devastated. The Sultanate of Delhi lost its power and broke up into many small states. Question 4. Explain why the two experiments by Muhammad Taulo to improve his rule failed. Answer. He issued token currency in copper. This experiment was a failure as people started to make copper coins in their homes and exchanged them for silver currency from the treasury. His treasure became empty. Muhammad Taghlaq decided to change his capital from Delhi to Daulatabad. Daulatabad could not maintain the new population as it had no fresh water supply. Question 5. Who was Ibn Battuta? Why are people like him important for the subject of history? Answer. Ibn Battuta was a Moroccan traveler who came to India in 1330. People like him are important as they leave account of the people and monarch of their time. Question 6. Why is Feroz Taghlaq's reign different from that of Muhammad Taghlaq? Answer. Muhammad Taghlaq was a capable general and as a sultan he extended the frontier of his kingdom. Feroz Taghlaq was not a good warrior, but his greatness lies in the fact that he looked after the people's welfare. Question 7. What was different about the Sayyid and Lodi dynasties? What were the impacts of their rules? Answer. Under the Sayyid dynasty, the Delhi Sultanate had shrunk and became confined to just Delhi and some areas surrounding the city. Under the Lodi dynasty, the kingdom expanded to include the Punjab, Mewar, and the Ganges, Yamuna Doab. He moved his headquarters to Agra and worked hard at improving the lot of the common people. The scholars were invited to the court and encouraged the compilation of books on medicine. Question 8. Which two movements were responsible for reforming Hinduism during the rule of Sikandar Lodi? Answer. One movement was called the Bhakti Movement and its leader was Kabir, who inspired many followers. Another Bhakti preacher in Bengal was Chaitanya, who led many Bengalis to follow his path. Question 9. Name the two famous books on medicine and music compiled during Sikandar Lodi's time. Answer. The book compiled on medicine is Madaniul Shifa and on music Dhajate Sikandar Shah. Question 10. Why was Babur, the ruler of Kabul, invited to India? Give another reason why Babur thought it right to invade India. Answer. The governor of Punjab, Daulat Khan, invited Babur, the king of Kabul, to save him from Ibrahim Lodi. Babur wanted to establish an empire in India. Fill in the blanks. 1. The Khiljis were Turks who had settled in Afghanistan. 2. Alauddin Khilji proved himself to be a good ruler, although he was not an educated person. 3. Muhammad Taghlaq had ideas beyond his history and times. 4. Muhammad Taghlaq shifted his capital from Delhi to Daulatabad. 5. The experiment with token currency was a failure because people began to make coins in their homes. 6. Feroz Taghlaq was a master builder like Shah Jahan, the Mughal emperor. 6. In 1398, Timur invaded India and ransacked the city of Delhi. 8. The Taghlaqs were succeeded by the Sayyid Sultans, but they ruled only Delhi and the areas surrounding it. 9. Kabir and Chaitanya were two Hindu reformers during the rule of the Lodi Sultans. 10. The first battle of Panipat was fought between Ibrahim Lodi and Babur, the ruler of Kabul. Thanks for listening. For new videos, don't forget to subscribe my channel. And if you like my videos, please share and like.